Okay, everybody, welcome to our last bonus call with the Bridle Your Health group program. I'm very excited to have Allison Trimble here tonight with Willfully Guided Horsemanship, and she is going to be talking to us about fear, confidence, and balance with your horse. Allison has an extensive education in animal science as well as being a very successful cow horse trainer, and she is very gifted in improving the relationship between horse and rider, and that is actually why I have invited her to be part of our bonus call. So hello, Allison.
How are you?
I'm good. So first,
yeah. Oh, go ahead. Ask first, fire away.
Yeah, first I just wanted you to, those of you that are not familiar with you, if you could just share kind of how you got to where you are and kind of what you do for people and share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I received a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science from Cal Poly, and while I was there, I was involved in a program called the Quarter Horse Program it's an enterprise project that you apply for and get on, and in that program we started 2-year-olds and sold them at the Snap-a-Bit Futurity sale. So, we work with trainers like Teddy Robinson and Sandy Collier and some really significant cow horse trainers, and that just made me fall in love with working cow horse. I actually bought my 2-year-old from the Enterprise Project and took it back and showed it at the Futurity the next year, and that was in 1999. And since then, I've been, I competed and showed as a non-professional for, about 7 years. But I did train all my own horses, and we had as many as 60 horses here at a time, and so that was a really unique experience coming into being a professional trainer. I dropped my non-professional status and started giving lessons and training outside horses. Now I do a lot more of a clinic schedule and write and do more things such as like what we're doing right now. But I have kind of a unique perspective because I've always owned my own horses and trained my own horses. So and I had to do a little bit of teaching myself along with, being able to go to clinics and ride with some great people. I never rode under anyone, so I kind of have a different perspective than I think a lot of trainers do.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of almost like self-taught and kind of come up through the ranks, which is very well respected, at least I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as much that I was totally self-taught. I mean, probably everybody has to go through that same part of it. I think the part that's unique is that I was both the trainer and the non-professional at the same time. So, I've had to make mistakes and figure out how to fix them but still compete. And so it's a pretty big mashing up of different things on a horse that I personally owned and cared for. So.
Yeah, right. Nice. Okay. So as far as the topic for tonight, why is basically overcoming fear and building confidence and balance with the horse important in the way that you train or a message that you want to get out to everybody?
So you mean balance just as far as riding, like people having fear of going faster, that kind of stuff? Or
yeah, or basically why is it important to you? Why is this topic something that you really like to specialize in? Or maybe you can give us examples of things that you've seen in the past or, things that have worked and hasn't worked.
Sure. I mean, I think that probably I didn't think of this before because I was kind of a kid that got started and, I never was fearless. I've always kind of been a risk minimizer by nature. I'm actually a little bit of a chicken in general. I'm afraid of heights.
I would have never known.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm deathly afraid of heights and speed and things like that. I'm comfortable doing it on a horse as long as I'm comfortable with the horse that I'm on. And I know that that's something that's really different for me and that has maybe hindered me a little bit in being competitive with some of the guys in what I do because I'm completely willing if it feels like a run falling apart for me to choose safety over a paycheck. So I think that I'm really heavy on the safety side of things. I mean, you have to be willing to take some risk to do anything with horses, really. I mean, they're gigantic animals, and they're, even though they're not wild, they're capable of definitely hurting you. I think that probably lately I've noticed people are talking a lot about their fears with horses and stuff, and so it's just become an interesting topic for me, I guess, more than anything, and I'm probably a good person to talk about it just because I've, am not, there's a lot of people who by nature, even Kayla, are a lot more, grab the bull by the horns, literally, kind of people, and I'm definitely not. So, I think I'm a good person to talk about it because, if I can go out and do it, I think that most people can.
Right. And you have that in common maybe with somebody who does have fear or has, experienced some trauma, so then they have more fear, and so they might want to work with somebody like yourself who, is maybe a little more gentle around that.
Sure, or understanding of it. I mean, my job is to push people slowly outside of their comfort zone, not completely outside of their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some big parts about comfort zone. I mean, there's some very cliche things that people say, and cliches are often very true, but pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, I mean, you do want to do that up until the point that you get hurt. And that's the difference, I guess, with horses and some other things, because the level of hurt you can get with a horse is very extreme, especially for, I would say there's a very large demographic, and probably of the people who we would be talking to here, that are middle-aged, maybe not in the best shape of their lives, things like that it greatly increases the likelihood that you're going to get hurt. And that can really put a damper on something you're supposed to enjoy. I mean, not everything is about pushing yourself to the brink of, just being terrified just so you can feel like you did that. I mean, I think that it's more important to look at it as building your capability up. Most people that I see that have talk about fear is because they've had something happen that was scary.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah.
So my concern when that happens is there should have been some healthy amount of fear long before that. And that's what I encourage people to try to think about is, understanding horses and how they work and react and becoming more capable with horses. When that happens, I mean, unless you're riding colts or you're going down the fence or you're barrel racing or doing something that has a lot of speed and a lot of, risk involved that way, you can pretty well, if you have the right horse and some knowledge, really enjoy having your horse without a lot of risk involved.
Mm-hmm. Right, but so I think you also touched on something though also that they are an over 1,000-pound animal, and they still have a mind of their own, and things do happen. And I've seen it myself where people get a little complacent maybe with a horse, and then something happens, and then that kind of blew them out of the water, and now they're completely scared of a horse that just a couple days ago everything was fine, and getting to the point where there's always just
and that, quite honestly, I mean, is the person's fault, because there's a lot of sign. I mean, I can say I have never had a horse do something that I didn't have a pretty good idea was coming at least at some point before it happened. Some experience. I mean, those are things that I'm, the reason I have it is from experience of it going bad, and so I remember it. I mean, that's what red flags are to us. That's what fear should be to us. Fear should be more of a warning system that tells us, when something's dangerous, not that's just there no matter what. But what I see is, just like that, people go, I trust old, Snowflake here. And that's not really, horses trust you. Your job is to lead them, not trust them beyond. I mean, I have horses that I definitely would believe will rise to most occasions and who have taken really good care of me, but that's not the same kind of trust. I mean, in our relationship with our horses, we're supposed to be the one leading them, and they're supposed to be able to trust us, not vice versa.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that, actually. Horses trust you. You are there to lead them, that's great.
It's not necessarily a reciprocal trust. I mean, it's just not a realistic way to look at it. Because they're still an animal, they're still reactionary. They aren't able to sit on a Bridle your phone call and talk about fear and understand it and embrace it. It's just not realistic. But learning to work within the things, it's the reason that horses are reasonably easy to get along with is that they are so, it's not that they're simple, but they're so consistent given the opportunity to be, you know, and that really relies on the people. Most of the time when I see somebody get hurt, they did something just ridiculous. I mean, I'll give you an example. The other day I was out riding a younger horse that probably had 60 rides on it, and it's a really pretty quiet little horse. But, I mean, you can only expect so much. And one of the little gals working for me walked up and tossed me a bag of pita chips while I was on the horse. Like, she had to go do something, and was standing next to me and didn't even think about it, and I had to, you know, catch it, and it was aluminum, and they're like, you know, foil, and it was really crinkly, and the horse kind of blew up, and, you know, I had to drop the bag on the ground, and I got a hold of her and stuff, but that, in another situation, could be a really big wreck just because somebody wasn't being thoughtful.
Right. Yeah. And you probably, as she was tossing it to you, probably saw it coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just didn't have any choice. It was either going to hit the horse or I was going to catch it. Yeah, I wasn't super happy about that. But that's, you know, one of the other things that I see is that almost always the people who I see who have gotten hurt are a large portion of the people who are asking me questions. And I've actually started making my videos and stuff, and I don't mean them a lot more simple, but even you know, kind of more beginner than I'd started before, because I'm so surprised at the number of people who are asking questions that really show, and I don't mean anything derogatory by this, but just how little they know. And, you know, that's scary for me that there's that many people out there with horses. I mean, I suppose that's how I made it. I mean, we didn't know anything, but...
Well, you know, you also have a degree in animal science, too, so, you know, and we share that. You know, there's some science background, but, I totally understand that. In my career, too, I come across a lot of horse owners who have had horses for a very long time, but I would say that their experience with horses is very low.
Sure.
Whether they've just always had a really easy horse. And I will actually give you an example. My mother, my mom's had horses for over 20 years, and her horse that she's had to take care of has been the easiest horse, hands down. I mean, this horse never colicked, never got hurt, never, you know, really has never had, and my mom's had that horse for 20-something years. And it's interesting when you have a horse that's super, super easy, and so you've never been challenged to figure it out. You know, you've never had to figure it out. You've never had to learn how to be around a young horse or think twice about things, or, you know, those types of interesting things that come up. And I'm to the point now where I joke with my mom about it, because she's had horses for so long, but really there's still a lot for her to learn.
Well, it was definitely like that growing up in Alaska, because we didn't have, as far as just education and stuff, horses hardly ever get sick. I mean, all the parasites are killed off every winter. There's just, I mean, I've never seen a horse colic in my life. And, you know, then I went to Cal Poly, and you put all those horses in one area, there's everything you can think of. And, but when it comes down to, like, I'll tell you one of the things that I hear, and this is talking about balance, and I know I posted this somewhere lately, but I've had people, they want to go faster on their horse, and they're afraid to go faster, they're afraid they're going to fall off, or they're afraid they're going to get in their horse's way. But because they've heard someone say they shouldn't hold on to the horn, they don't. And I'm like, I'm so surprised when I hear that. And I know that I have the guys who, you know, kind of razz me, because sometimes I hold on to the horn going down the fence just so I won't get out of position. Because honestly, for me, my pride is not bigger than being able to show my horse to my horse's best ability. And there's, like, particularly one of the horses that I show is really small and fast and kind of hard to stay in the middle of, and really quick. And I would hate to go, I mean, she's a big-time fence horse. I mean, I'm not going to fall off if I can help it, and I'm not going to, you know, get in her way because I can't stay in the middle of her going down the fence at that speed and turning at that speed. So, but I'm surprised when I hear people say that, because what I want to say is, well, how are you expecting to gain the balance that you need to go that speed and to not do it hanging onto your horse's face? Because if you start to lose your balance, the first thing you're going to do is grab up on the reins more and get in your horse's way. And so I just put out a video actually on my YouTube channel that's about, you know, adding speed using the round pen and getting used to it, because I think people think that a round pen's only good for, colt starting or lunging your horse or something like that, when it's really a great place to get your balance and just sit in the middle of your horse and just kick your horse up there and let him go around in the round pen and use the horn when you need to, but just get your body used to the motion of it. It's kind of the same muscle memory, reaction memory that you have to be able to go out and lope.
Yeah. No, I like that. And kind of like you said, don't be afraid of the horn. I was taught growing up, never touch the horn, never touch the horn. But if you are trying to do something new, like you said, whether that's a new speed or a new maneuver, and you want to stay in center of balance with your horse, you shouldn't be scared of it. You should really just at it when you need it.
I'm always surprised, and maybe I'm just such an obtuse person, but I just go, why would you choose to fall off rather than hold on to the horn? To me, I don't really care what anyone would tell me. I mean, I'm a survivalist. I'm not going to fall off just because somebody said to me, hey, you shouldn't grab the horn. So that's, I guess,
I just thought of that. Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were discussing the horn, and it is, especially if you're somebody like we talked about, kind of the maybe middle-aged, person who maybe isn't in the best shape of their life. It's grab the horn before you fall off.
Sure. Then it's kind of like your options are either, be the fittest person you can ever possibly be and have lots of experience and be able to ride, or you just shouldn't do it. I mean, it's like people act like those are the two extremes.
Right.
Of course, there's lots of gray area, and you have to take things in small steps to be able to get where you can, be where you want to be. You're not going to be there overnight. And so, being afraid to hold onto the horn or doing something like that to not disappoint somebody else, and then you end up hurting yourself, that 100% will scare you and knock you out of it and all of that. I mean, that's, people think of fears with horses. Now, there's certain parts of fear that are, like, I think I said in one of my articles, we watched a gal die going down the fence, and I had to show down the fence 5 horses later. And, I mean, it was really a tough deal to watch, and that was more of a psychological issue to get over. But even with that, what I found is it isn't, people psych themselves up that they just need to decide that they're not going to be afraid and that that's going to be good enough. Just buck up and get on and, just face your fears. And it's not really like that. I mean, you have to become capable and educated and knowledgeable and all of that stuff to be able to get past your fears.
Right. Yeah. Is there a common or a most common fear that you've maybe been seen or worked with people that come to you and say, they're mostly afraid of this certain thing when it comes to horses? Or
I would say that there's definitely a lot of fear of falling off, fear of messing up their horse.
That's actually a really interesting topic. The fear of messing up their horse. So maybe the horse has been trained by a professional and they're worried they're going to, hey, can you explain that a little bit more or kind of interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times people have a little bit of an elevated idea of what their horse's knowledge and ability is. I mean, you own them, you feed them. That's what they're there for, in my opinion. You can always work on that more, but, you still need to go out and try to do that. It's not like the training just sits there and stays, I think it's a little bit of a farce that a lot of people think that their horses know so much more than them or whatever. I mean, in most cases like that, unless they're buying an extremely expensive horse, that's probably not as true as they think it is.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And then the other one would be falling off, which is a wide variety of things.
Really super high. Yeah, rearing, bucking, things like that. But most of those just come down to not really understanding how to deal with those things when they come. I mean, the first thing is being able to identify something that's going to be dangerous, and then the second thing is knowing what to do when that happens or knowing what to do to prevent that. I mean, you should have, I'll give an example. One of the gals who was working for me for a while, we had a younger horse that had been really easy for her to put a few rides on. And, I mean, that horse came out. She saddled it. It blew up at the tie rack. It blew up in the round pen. It had never bucked before. And she still went and crawled on it just like it was the day before. And she got bucked off, and she got bucked off really hard. And she just thought it came out of the blue. And I'm like, but it told you at least 2 times, and I guarantee you when you swung a leg over, it told you a 3rd time. You know, where I would have been a little bit more cautious on a horse that had never blown up before, and then all of a sudden on the 4th ride blew up at the cross ties and blew up everywhere. I probably would have just gone and hopped on. And it scared the horse really bad. I mean, it took a month to get the horse over it, literally. It was that big of a blow up. And so those are just things that, you know, not reading the signs before it happens, you know, and then not knowing what to do when it happened, couldn't ride through it either. So, you know, both of those things got her scared and kind of hurt, and scared the horse and made me more upset.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
So if this is something that you were to work with somebody around, say somebody came to you with some fear issues, incompetence issues, what is maybe...
That happens a lot. That happens a lot.
So what is maybe the first step you go through with them in overcoming their fear?
Yeah, my job is to get them to trust me more than to trust the horse necessarily. So it's kind of the same thing as when you're working with a horse and getting it to trust you. They have to trust me that I'm going to put them on the right horse in the right situations and make sure they know what to do. And so then they get to start slowly building up some confidence in those, you know, in those places. And a lot of times a lack of confidence is exactly what causes the problem. You know, being tense or tight or fearful or any of those things can often lead to an issue that might not have been there otherwise. But the big thing is putting them on a really good broke horse. I would say 90% of the fear issues come from being mismatched with their horse.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I don't mean mismatched that they aren't perfectly lovable or the right color or any of those things. I mean, like, the horse's training and disposition does not match the rider's ability level.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So kind of going back to step 1, you just kind of start, you said building the trust with you, but then how does it work towards the horse?
So this is what I tell people. If you're going to be involved in horses, you either need to be one of 3 things. You need to be extremely brave, which means you're just going to keep getting back on no matter what happens, no matter how many times you get bucked off, no matter how fast they go. You know, you just have to be able to, you know, grit your teeth and bear it. Or you have to be extremely rich, which means you need to be able to put your horse in training nonstop with a trainer who makes sure that you will never be in a situation where you get hurt. Or you have to be diligent and determined. And most of the time when I talk to people who say that that's what they are, and you ask them how long they ride their horse and how many days a week, they tell you 15 minutes, maybe 3 days a week. And that is not diligent and determined. I mean, if you don't have either of the other 2 things, if you're not extremely brave or you are not extremely wealthy, then that needs to be putting in serious hours of time every day until you feel like you get a handle on it. That's what people who become, you know, good horsemen, that's what they've done. They don't ride 15 minutes 3 days a week.
Right.
So that's great if you want to do that. Then you either have to be willing to bounce or you have to be willing to pay. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah. No, I like that, actually. That's a good simplistic way to say it, for sure.
I mean, there really is no other option, because it's going to I mean, it's just if you're around horses long enough, there's going to be some issue at least.
Have you ever came across a situation where you have somebody riding with you and who maybe they act like, maybe when you're discussing with them, they act, maybe their talk is bigger than their actions. They talk that they're a good rider or that they've been riding forever, and then they hop on a horse and you start noticing that maybe they're off balance or not as confident in the saddle?
I mean, most of the time when people come to ride with me, whatever they think, I would say that I prefer getting beginners than the people who think that they know a little bit, because what happens is their world gets crumbled really quickly if this is something they hold really dear and they think they're a really good rider, because most of the people aren't going to say they're a really good rider. Most people just don't have the experience to be that. They may have a good seat and they may have some natural ability, but very few people who are going to be coming to a trainer, you know, who does the kind of things that I do are going to be really all that far along, you know what I mean, comparatively. So it's going to shatter them very quickly. They're going to realize how little they know. Most people have learned to get along with one horse, and that doesn't necessarily mean they have great horsemanship skills that work across all horses. So what will happen is you start throwing them on a bunch of different horses, and their horse and them have learned to get around each other, which is very different. Yeah,
I actually 100% agree with you on that, and I think that's where a lot of people do maybe feel that they're a little bit more confident than maybe what they really are because they've been riding the same horse forever and ever.
Oh,
and,
yeah. I
mean, I agree with you. The more horses you get to ride, the better you become.
Because there's certain ways that you deal with all horses that work across all horses, but most people don't learn horsemanship that way, which is part of the reason that that's part of the point of my program, I suppose. And, and I would say that's the really great thing about horses is usually if you just show up every day and keep hammering at it, they'll come through. Most horses will kind of adapt to you and figure it out, unless they're just terrible dispositions, which most horses don't come that way. That's the reason that they are rideable. I mean, there's a reason we don't ride tigers, or other things. You know what I mean? I mean, horses are definitely more suited for that naturally. And, they look for leadership. They look for those things and will fall in line. And so, that's kind of my issue with, like, natural horsemanship and stuff is that, they encourage you to treat another horse as though you're also a horse. So that's their outlook on horse behavior is we're both going to act like we're horses, more or less. And I really disagree with that. What I believe in is knowing horse behavior and the things that go along with that and then treating a horse like a human dealing with a horse, not as another horse. Because I don't know if you've ever seen horses play together, but that even gives them the opportunity to think that there's a pecking order they could be in above me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's just perception-wise. I look at that a little bit differently.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think that's crucial to not getting hurt.
Well, you're right. There's a reason why we, way back when decided to actually ride the horse versus riding a cow.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, on the outside, a lot of people think they're very similar, but we know the inside they're very different, and personalities are very different. Obviously, there's a reason why we chose the horse.
Exactly.
To be our riding companion. Yeah. Well, so before we open up for more questions, if anybody's out there that wants to ask you a question, if you were working with a rider, maybe in your program, who came to you with wanting to learn like balance, maybe has some confidence issues, is there any specific exercises that you run them through, or do you just keep it more individual?
Oh, I think I don't. I mean, besides putting somebody in a round pen, most of my horses are pretty quiet and stuff. And you'll find that if you just let people kind of get out, there's a certain amount of just riding you need to do. Just go around, walk, trot, go places, do it every day. Like, do as much as you can, but do it every day. And that'll start growing. They'll get a little bit braver here and a little bit braver there, and start growing from that. I think the worst situation you can have, it's why I'm not a big fan of, once a week lessons, is if you're not riding every day, you're not going to improve enough unless you were at one time an extremely good rider. It's something that you need to really immerse yourself in to improve, unless you're, already an athlete and not afraid of things. But if you have a little bit of fear and you have a little bit of that stuff, then you need to just go kind of peck at it every day. And it will. I mean, if the horses, especially if the horses are good, you'll see. They'll be, you'll do it every day. And even fearful people will get tired of not pushing their bubble, And so they'll just step a little bit out, and they'll step a little bit out. I mean, that's what I did as a kid. We just rode everywhere. And so there's some of that I usually just put people on horses that I'm really comfortable with, and I go out and ride around. If you try to give too much direction to people, it can almost be confusing. It's better to put them on a really, really good horse that they can literally just pull on and stop, and it'll listen to them and not get afraid, and that isn't tense, and that you do that kind of stuff with, which we have a number of horses that are good for that. And then you just let them go out and get a feel for, the horse responding when they do the right thing, and they get a little bit of confidence. The horse can almost do more for them in that situation than I can.
Right. Yeah, so really the consistency is key, and just doing it every single day and just a little bit.
I know that may sound over the top, but I mean, really, it isn't. That's what the rest of us do.
It's not, because if you relate it to anything else in life, at least when I kind of step back and kind of look at that, when we're talking about in your health, or whether it's exercise or eating healthy, like all this stuff that we've been talking about in this program, consistency is key, and turning something into a habit is when it really starts sticking. And
it doesn't need, especially. I mean, you don't want to treat it like binge riding. You know what I mean? Like once a week or
no binge riding.
Or something. No binge riding. I mean, even if you did just a little bit here and there, that, that'll go a long way.
Right. No, I like that. That's awesome. That's your website, all that kind of stuff.
My website is willfullyguided.com, and you can kind of get out to every other link I have there. I have a blog spot that's AllisonTrimble.blogspot.com. A lot of my articles are on there. I write for the Northwest Horse Source magazine. You can go to their website and look at archived articles. That's nwhorsesource.com. I have a YouTube channel that's actually pretty good, and that's youtube.com/willfullyguided. And you can get a hold of me any of those ways. Find me on Facebook. Anything like that.
Awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate you being here and just taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to just share a little bit of your knowledge. And this recording will be available to everybody on the program. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, have a good night. I got to go get these rescue horses loaded in a trailer. So perfect.
Oh, yes. I will be talking to you soon. Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Bye,
All
Allison.
right. Thanks, Tina. Bye.